Right.
Okay, meeting come to order. I would like to call for the roll call.
Alderperson Vitale,
Here,
Grisham,
Here.
There we go, we're live now.
Rosalie,
Here.
okay, meeting,
Ranky, I'm sorry,
Here.
Rote,
Here.
Stefanski,
Here.
5 present.
so everybody's present. So now I'd like to ask for a motion of the approval of the minutes drafted of the license and health regular meeting.
Move for approval, Mr. Chair.
All right,
Second.
all in favors?
Aye.
I have it. So now we have a
Any,
new and
excuse me,
previous.
Alderman Vitale,
I
you have to ask for the opposed to.
oppose. Any opposed?
Thank you.
All in favors?
Aye.
Aye.
I have it. We move forward. We have a new and previous matters for introduction. Police, it's item 3. I mean, item 2. Police Department report regarding tavern violation. Call for service for the month of February 2020. Rebecca?
Yes?
So, Mr.
Yes, you want to, we're talking about the month of February, the police report. We just act on that and we place on file, right? I like to,
No.
I like to hear a motion to place it on file.
Mr. Chair, if I may briefly.
Yes,
So frequently what we do, at least in the last cycle or session, these would be put on the agenda for the committee to review, not to take much action on it at this point. If something does kind of stand out to the committee, we can talk outside of the committee and or I'll use these to draft a summons and complaint and look at other incidents. But this is to make sure that the committee is up to date or knows what's kind of going on from the police perspective in the city.
yeah, I do agree with you, Nick. The fact it is, it would be possible, and maybe we're going to discuss that just as well, to for the committee to get an update, prior of the meeting, the way everybody can look into it, I mean, can digest what's the police report is for that particular month, whether it's February, January, I mean, whatever the month in the future come through, Is it something could be accommodated?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Yeah, if it would be possible, like I said, at this time for the February police report to get an update sooner for the committee to kind of digest the information of the police report early. I mean, not just, like I say, it came in front of us right now, but I think we should kind of digest ahead of time, at least every committee members, can look at it and see what really we're talking about,
Vince, did you notice in our attachment to our email, it had a PDF file of the February calls and the March calls? Did you
Yeah.
notice?
Yes.
Okay.
I can
So
talk
that's
to
what-
the clerk. Sorry, I can talk to the clerk's office and I can see if they can get that out sooner. I know it is attached or generally goes out with the agenda. I do review it at that time too. I would also note that we do have a police officer available, at least on this call.
Right.
Get to speak on that. I believe Sergeant Cato is in.
Yes. Hello. How you guys all doing?
Hi, Nick.
Hi.
I mean,
Hi.
Yes.
Okay.
I think normally I get these tavern reports completed ahead of time. I usually send it to I believe Ann Neff along with the chief, and I think a couple of other people prior to the actual meeting that you guys have. So that's why you guys have the other ones in front of you right now for, I believe, February and March.
Yes, you're right.
So I guess if there's any other questions or concerns related to the February or March incidents that are on here, I'd be happy to answer any questions pertaining to those things.
Yeah, would you give us some enlightenments for the sake of the committee members for February and March?
All right. Well, I guess we start with February then. It looks like you guys want me to go through each one, or the ones that stand out to me as the most
I
important?
think the one that stand out more,
All right.
And I'm sorry, just to chime in, City Attorney Nick Serwin here, or Assistant City Attorney Nick Serwin. I would just caution the committee not to prejudge any matters that come. The strongest action we can take is a summons and complaint to bring in a bar owner or a licensee. And so there has been times in the past where individuals were brought in and kind of admonished. And if that's something the committee would want to do, that's happened in the past. But generally, this is informational for the committee, but I would ask that nobody prejudge anything before there's a hearing, if there is ever going to be a hearing on any of these matters.
Yeah, I agree with you, Nick. Totally agree. Yes.
Okay. Well, that makes sense then too. So I guess I would say if there's any issues, well, I mean, we can discuss them, but there's nothing. This is one of my first times presenting one of these things to you all. So if you would rather me just not talk about any of these issues right now, and then, or do you want me to go over some of these things, Mr. Serwin?
Well, the fact that if you got just a few items, and I mean, or a few reports, I mean, I don't want you to go through all of it, really. I mean,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
Alderman Road here. What we've done, I believe, in the past, Nick Serwin, is we place these on file, noting that we've looked at them. And if we want to say, hey, Joe Smith here, we'd like to see him at the next meeting. That's what we've done in the past. Is that correct, Nick?
That is correct. Yes. I don't think we've gone through them all individually or had
No.
to recite them.
Right. and that's
I mean,
what-
we can just place both of them at this time on file then.
Okay.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to place item 2 and 3 on file.
second,
All in favors, say aye.
aye,
Aye.
Noes, the aye have it. Roll call.
I don't think we need a roll call.
No, not on that one.
Well, it's all right. We'll place on file. All right, let's move on to item E, matters for discussions.
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Yes.
Thank you. Again, Nick Serwin with the City Attorney's Office. So these matters are the operator's licenses or other licenses that come through, the applications that come through. I would note, at least this first one, the document that I had sent through that was included, that included the conviction status report, had extra names on it that was inadvertently added on. The list was longer at some point. Several of those had been already decided by this committee in the past, and so I would recommend that we don't reconsider extra names. The only names we need to consider are the ones that are on the agenda, and those, historically, what we've done is gone through, or at least had a discussion on whether or not there should be a denial or approval of the license. In some of the other documents I had sent through, I referenced Wisconsin statute 111.335, which kind of guides or limits the discretion of the committee here in terms of how we would, or how we could consider convictions. Any pending convictions could only be considered if they substantially relate to the license activity and they are an index offense, a specific offense that typically is a violent offense against a child or an adult. Convictions we can only count or use if they substantially relate to the license activity. And the committee would have to make a finding of that as we proceed here. And if somebody is denied in this review, they would have a chance to come back and show competent evidence of rehabilitation by law. And if they do so, this committee would have to grant that license then. So just so I just wanted to put a framework around the review and the convictions. The main thought here is that any convictions would have to substantially relate to the license activity if we're going to use those for denial.
So the fact, like, we know that if, say, somebody come forward and he has driving violations, you know, and he doesn't have a driver license, we cannot, again, deny the license. Is that correct, Nick?
It would be my opinion, yes, that it would not substantially relate. A driver's license is not a necessary component to have an operator's license. So there have been instances in the past where people have lied about driving. Lying to the committee is obviously something you consider, and that is not something that is under the discretion of 111.335. So that's not anything to do with conviction. You can consider somebody lying to the committee. That being said, the previous iterations of the committee had directed the clerk's office to not send through, as in maybe put on the consent agenda for approval, any convictions that were driving related, not including, so they would always review OAR offenses, operating after revocation, or operating after suspension offenses if those appeared on the records. But things like speeding tickets or whatever might come, parking tickets, those would not come to the committee for potential consideration because they would never substantially relate, is how the committee determined that.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Stacy.
Nick, but the things like operating while under the influence or something like that, that would be considered part, right?
Certainly, I would say operating under the influence, sales to underage or minors. There are some disorderly conducts that could count. There are some thefts. There, effectively, if you can draw a good conclusion, I mean, my job is to help defend your decisions and help guide your decisions legally. And so, if you can come up with why it would substantially relate, I think that would at least count for a person to come and show rehabilitation, competent evidence of rehabilitation.
So if we want to have somebody that's applying come in front of us now with the situation we have, they'd have to join us on a Zoom meeting, correct?
That is the current problem. And so some of the names that did appear that shouldn't have appeared are those that were denied previously, and we are waiting. The clerk's office has not sent out mail to them yet to come and meet. I'm not sure at this point if we're waiting to have a Zoom meeting or hoping that early June we can have people show competent evidence of rehabilitation.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
So any other members has any questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Road here. Say Attorney Nick Sherwin, are we going to be going name by name now on the list?
If it's up to the committee how you want to proceed. I think in the past, when people were comfortable with the process, they would have an idea in advance on who they think should go into the approval or who should go into the denial pile.
Well, quite honestly, I was never comfortable with it. And I think we have 4 people on this committee who are new that have never seen this list.
Right.
Correct. I've never seen it, but I'm familiar with it after sitting in meetings.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be bad for practice purposes to go through name by name if the committee would so choose. I have no problem with that.
That works for me.
Yes. Suzette, you have a question?
That would work for me. Then I have a bit more familiarity because it seems like a little lost here.
So anybody else? I think that's great ideas just as well. So anybody else has any questions for Nick?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Rosalie, go ahead.
this is for Reinke.
Rosalie, I call you Rosalie.
Because basically, as Alderman Roth has indicated, there are some of us that have never served on this kind of committee. Is it possible to have a session to give us a little background of the committee workings, rather than use this time to go over everything that is required? Is it possible to have an extra meeting?
Alderman Reinke, I believe we discussed that with Nick. So I believe it's a good idea what you just said. They would like to have maybe a session, for everyone to get more updates of what's really is going on, because like you said, I mean, you've never been on license.
So we know at least what the procedure would be
Yeah.
before the fact instead of after the fact.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to do a training session or a meeting. The timing of this meeting, when the agenda finally came out or was getting going, didn't have time to put that together, but I'm happy to do a training as soon as anybody would like. And I can answer questions, at least for these 4 or 5 names here, if you want to proceed with this review and kind of get people's feet wet or understanding of how the process has worked. But if the decision's up to the committee how to proceed.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Stacy.
Nick, can these be put on hold till the next meeting? And so we could review with you over a training session before the next meeting?
I'd have to double check real quick on when the actual license period begins. I believe it is the license applications for 2019 to 2021, it looks like on the application. These aren't open right now, so I don't think anybody's working, frankly. I'm not sure the impact it would have on them individually. I think if we approved them, they would have to wait until the next common council for actual formal approval. And then conceivably they could work at the bar doing non-licensed activity, but then again, they could do that even without this bartender's license. So I can't foresee at this point an impact if this would be delayed.
And our next meeting is next week, Tuesday anyways, so.
For common council.
Tomorrow night, we got a council meeting. Right?
What's that, Vince?
I believe tomorrow night we have a council meeting,
We have a special one. This would be. for
special council meeting,
our
yeah,
next
but
Scheduled one, which would be next week.
next week then, yes, yeah.
Mr.
So-
So,
Do you need
Well,
me to
that's
make a
the-
motion?
Mr. Chair,
yes,
did you want to consider perhaps having a meeting before the council meeting next Tuesday?
I
to
think it'll
have
be
the
great,
Information
Yes.
session, as
Sure.
well as scheduling these items, the licenses again?
yes, yeah, we could do that for next Tuesday, right?
Maybe at 6 o'clock if that works for people.
That would work for me.
It's good for
Mr.
everybody
Chair?
else? Yes.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Prior to our meeting, we did receive attachments in our emails for this particular meeting. Is it that others weren't able to review these reports? Because I have the reports printed. So we have a matter of, if I am correct, 5 that we can bring to discussion if we so choose. Is it just that I'm a little confused why we're gonna put these on file if we can actually discuss them now?
Well, I
Is it
mean,
others have not reviewed them?
my strong feeling is we should move it to adopted those 4 items, really, those 4 applicant. Like I say, you review it. I mean, I'm sure if everybody else, of course, Dan, but myself, I know already what's there's nothing really to deny them the license, at this point. I mean, if it's the case. So for those 4 or 5 items, I think for those applications, I believe we should move on to approve it. But then like the idea of educational, educational meeting would be great. Like we talked about already for next week, Tuesday at 6 p.m. It would be a good idea. Like I said, everyone will get some feedback and some updates what really the licensing committee is really there for, at least to get some good ideas and not just to not knowing exactly what we're doing, to me, that's
Yes,
what I
and I-
like to start.
and I understand that. I understand that for purposes of training or moving forward. However, as we all receive these attachments, we have
Yes.
been able to look at it. And if Nick would like to go through those 4 or 5 quickly,
That'd be
we
fine.
can at least have discussion, and then we can go into a separate meeting for
Yeah,
training purposes.
Okay,
If
good.
so,
So we could have a Nick, if you don't mind, they probably could address those 4 or 5 applicants.
You bet.
Thank you.
So on item 4, there is the first name, which is William Chambliss. What the document is that we use most frequently is the license conviction summary, or however it's gonna be named, but it's a spreadsheet which is gonna have some information on it. So that's what I'm reviewing or I have in front of me right now. In terms of Mr. Chambliss, the things I would point out, just so we have, these are the things that the previous committee found to be important. What type of license, the driver's license status, which again, doesn't necessarily impact the ability to have a license, but occasionally people would drive to the committee and would lie about it to the committee. There's the DOT notes, which are provided by the West Dallas Police Department. There's local notes, which are also provided by the West Dallas Police Department. And then there are works reports, which are an abbreviation that are provided to the committee. They are difficult to read, and that would be something that I would definitely be happy to train everybody in. It is difficult for everybody to read. But I do go through those, or the clerk's office does go through those and provides information on the spreadsheet. And then I added another line item here for CCAP, just so I could check my work on the works report, frankly. And so if you're looking at that spreadsheet, that is what we are considering for convictions. So for William Chambliss, he has a new license, or new application for an operator's license. His driver's license is valid. He has a 2016, this only shows up because it's reported from the police department. So improper headlights, and then 2 operating while suspended, both from 2017. He is now valid. My advice to the committee would be, although he does have 2 of those types of offenses, which at some point the state suspended his driver's license, he is currently valid. So it would be a difficult argument for the committee to make, in my opinion, that he has not appropriately shown competent evidence of rehabilitation now that he's a valid license. He does not have any local reports. He does not have any CCAP entries or works notes. My opinion to the committee, and I don't want to guide you too much, but there's not much here to say that we don't have. This one likely should be approved unless there's a reason not to.
I make a motion that we approve this individual.
Second, Rosalie.
Rosalie, second. All in favors?
Aye.
Opposed? The eye have it.
Would you like me to go through each person that way, or?
Yeah, let's do that way, Nick. It don't take much anyway, really.
Yep, no, it does not. I'm gonna reserve my comments in regards to the committee's actions. I think that's the committee's choice to make, and I don't want to kind of change for Mr. Chambliss because it was kind of a straightforward one. I didn't think it was too bad, but I'm gonna leave that open to the committee to decide how to proceed. The next one is Brian DePons. Mr. DePons had a previous license. This is a new operator's license because he let the other one lapse. But that new license, or that previous license, was issued after he received an OWI. So technically speaking, the OWI in 2008 was already considered previously when this license was granted to Mr. DePons in the past. He is currently valid, and the only offense that shows up here is that 2008 OWI. Just because it shows up in 2 different spots on the DOT and the works does not mean it's a different offense, to be clear. That's only one offense. It's just 2 different databases reporting it.
Mr. Chair,
Any questions? Yes.
wrote here,
Yes.
and I understand this is a whole new committee, and I totally understand it, but in the past, and if we want to decide to go that way, we have always brought anyone in with an OWI.
Thank you.
So that would be the desire of the committee as to how they want to move
But
on this.
Any other members that has any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Dan, was it a certain time period of an OWI, or was it any OWI?
Well, I do see that this one is 12 years old, and I really don't recall. And if there's someone out there, I see Marty Weigel's with us, and I know he's not on this committee, but if I would certainly appreciate his input if he is listening. Because I don't remember. I know and this is 12 years back. I see that now.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Susan.
I believe based on our statutes with the outline, and Dan, if we read the statutes as far as rehabilitation, I think that timeline is well past to warrant to call him in per se. If it were more recent, I would say yes. However, I would not think a 12-year-old OWI would warrant a lack of rehabilitation or proof thereof. So I would move to, if there isn't any more discussion on it or otherwise, I would move to approve.
Any other discussions from members of the license?
Marty's on. I think he was gonna chime in with something for us.
Mr. Chair, if I may add,
Yes. Yes, Mark.
Alderman Roll is correct that we would typically call in people with one OWI, but the question of recency is pertinent, I believe, and I think as Alderperson Grisham had pointed out, that 12 years ago with nothing since might have been clear. And I would add, especially in this tough time of communication, it was very simple in the past to send somebody a letter and require them to show up at City Hall at a certain date and time. But I guess I would defer to Assistant Attorney Serwin on this. I mean, are we gonna require somebody to attend via Zoom meeting? And the point was really to reiterate to the applicant the importance of their decisions in the past and their decisions going forward with alcohol service. So, and I guess that would be my question for Nick is, if we require somebody to show up or send them a quote show up, and they say, I don't have a computer, or I don't have a fast internet connection, or is that a reason for potential denial in the future? I guess that would be a question.
To answer that question and then a few other points, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
I'm concerned about the process of having a hearing or having somebody try to commit or submit evidence via a Zoom call. And that's kind of why I expressed, if we're denying these, it might have to wait till a Zoom meeting when they can come in and actually appear, or we can't say for certain, hey, they didn't appear. Maybe they just had a technical difficulty and they couldn't make it. I have concerns about that. We're not requiring to be very clear, what the committee would be doing right now is denying the license. And so it's not requiring anybody to come in. They have the opportunity or option to come in, or if we have to do it by Zoom, so be it. But they don't have to. And so we are taking a stance. So the committee would be taking a stance of denial at this point and saying you are denied but for or unless you do some other act, which is coming in and showing competent evidence of rehabilitation. The third thing I would want to remind the committee, and I do agree with Alderperson Rote, that OWIs were frequently asked to come in. The only difference in this instance is that Mr. DePons had a bartender license in 2009 or 10, I want to say. Anne Marie Neff had pointed out to me previously. And so that OWI in 2008 had already been considered during a licensing period. It might be a difficult argument to approve it at one point and then deny it a subsequent time to say it substantially relates when there hasn't been anything new that happened.
Thank you, Nick.
I make a motion that we approve Mr. DePons.
A second?
Second it, Reinke.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The I have it. Thank you.
The next
Mr.
person.
Chair,
Yes, Rosalie.
as far as OWIs, I would say we would probably bring a candidate in if they were showing a pattern of many OWIs, but I can't see for bringing a candidate in for one OWI. And the time element has something to do with it too. 12 years is a long time, and I'm sure by now he's been rehabilitated. So between the time and the pattern of OWIs, those should be a consideration of the committee, I would assume. Attorney Nick, would you agree with me?
Yes, I would, Alderperson Ranky. I think there's a remoteness or a proximity in time argument there. So if somebody has one OWI, but it was in 2017 or 18 or 19 or 20, obviously that might have more impact on the committee than one from 1998.
Exactly.
That
Right.
being said, if they have a 1998, a 2005, and a 2010, even though those are remote in time, the committee might want to still make a decision one way or the other. My job is to defend that decision so long as we make a good record. And so I will help guide you through that, whichever way you want to go.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, at the same time, it's still the wishes of the committee, you know, but the fact is, if we have somebody with one offense, which it did about 4 years ago, you know, he'd been caught for drunken driving. I mean, I don't like to see the man be penalized or call him in for one offense, you know. I mean, I don't think, to me, the committee will kind of consuming some of the time, really, because I think that is more in time, more issue, they're more important than one person has one WI, really. I mean, for my opinion, you know, of course, the member has the, you know, the final say, so, you know, both either way, you know, so that's why, I mean, to me, it's really for one person that has one record, for us to call him in, whether it was 2 years ago. If you got a pattern, to me, that's different. Then we have to look into it, you know. But when you talk about one person had 2 years ago, he was caught for drunken driving, you know. I mean, I'm not going to hold the guy, you know, against give him a license, you know. But I mean, of course, if he has other violations, you know, they're more important, then that's when we're gonna be kind of strict on it, you know.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
go ahead,
Mr.
Suzanne.
Chair, in light of our timing, can we move on maybe to our third?
Yes,
We can
yes.
come together and maybe make some decisions on the OWI offenses and further discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Suzette. But Tracy had a question, right, Tracy?
I was gonna say the same thing.
Same thing, great.
And Mr. Chair, I'll add, and we talked about this previously, but there'll be an agenda item on probably even the training for the guidelines that the committee or the clerk's office uses to kind of separate these out. So that'll be a better discussion to have then. The next one is for, and I'm going to probably butcher the name, but Jessica Schillig Parkhausen. If you look at hers, she's a new application. Her current driver status is suspended. She does have recent traffic matters. They seem to be related to speed and then points issues and then failure to pay forfeitures. So that is why she's currently suspended. She does not currently have any local notes. She had a 2014, on the works report, a 2014 fine for operate without a license. And then on CCAP, it does show dated violations out of the area, but dated violations 2011, 2013 for operate without a valid license. And then a citation in 2016 for a child safety restraint. And then a citation in 2016 for disorderly conduct. I don't have any other information about what those incidents would entail.
Any questions from the committee for Nick?
No, I have none.
But, Mr. Chair,
Yes,
but right now, she currently does not have a license. She is suspended, correct, since 2014, or 2014 was the last time she was caught?
I don't know. I can't say how long she has not had a license, but she is currently suspended in terms of what the police records showed.
Well, I'd certainly like to bring that person in, see how they got to the meeting, see how they're gonna get to work.
I would agree with Alderman Rowe.
anybody else?
I agree as well. We could bring them in, bring her
Yep, I
in.
agree.
All right,
So,
so
Mr.
let's,
Chair, just
That's
Mr.
a
Chair,
bring-
I'm sorry, to be clear, the vote is to deny then, so we'd have to make a finding that there's something on her record that substantially relates to the licensed activity. What would that be?
Can, Mr. Chair? Nick, can
Yes,
these be put on hold until we talk with the person, not necessarily deny, but talk with the person?
Whatever the procedure is that the committee would want to do, that is up to the committee. The only issue that I have is that an applicant under 111.335, Wisconsin statute 111.335, when an applicant is denied for a license, they would have the opportunity to come in and show competent evidence of rehabilitation. So that's why this has kind of been considered a soft denial in the past. If you'd rather have them come in and discuss issues, I think that's up to the committee to decide how you want to proceed on that front. If and when they're denied, they could show at that point competent evidence of rehabilitation. The statute was made without really any consideration of how this is going to play out. So it actually extends these meetings out, and it makes people come in more times, but that's how they
Mr.
decided.
Chair.
yes.
I believe competent rehabilitation would be have a driver's license or walk to the meeting, walk to our hearing. And please, if I'm wrong, someone tell me.
But based,
Or a soft denial.
but based on the information by state statute, we cannot really, and again, it's up to the committee, but based on that, because the person doesn't have no driver license, we cannot really, deny the liquor license, the bartender license,
Well, if this particular applicant, if we're up and running doing physical meetings, and if this particular applicant is parked in the front row in her car and she doesn't have a license, that's reason to deny right there.
But that's, again, Nick, I'd like to have your questions on this. If we deny the license based on that, but a person, that's more of a police job on the outside the perimeter of the, say, talk about City Hall, once somebody walks out, we don't have no rights really to say how they get there and how they're gonna leave the parking lot. I don't think we have the rights on that.
Mr. Chair, Alderman Vitale,
Yes,
we have had, again, I understand this is a new committee, but we have had several applicants that we have caught on camera. The south side of that building is just loaded with cameras, and we have seen them drive off consistently.
So, Mr. Chair, if I could,
yes.
Please. Oh, I'm not Mr. Chair, sorry.
there's two issues. First, if we're going to say soft denial or go the route that the previous committee did, there has been an argument that's been made that if the state, to synthesize it down, if the state can't trust you to drive, if they don't issue you a license to drive, why should we issue you a license or trust you with a license to manage other people's alcohol intake and make sure that they're safe to drive and do things along those lines? That's the argument that can be made, and that's why OAR, or operating after revocation offenses, and operating after suspension offenses were concluded to potentially substantially relate. If we are going the soft denial route, that would be an argument that could be made in this one if that's what the committee is deciding to do. In terms of somebody driving to a committee, so I will say it again that the ability to drive or having a driver's license is not a requisite to having a liquor or a bartender's license. That being said, if somebody is lying to the committee, that's always something to consider. If somebody is coming to a committee meeting and driving there and breaking the law to actively do that, I think that's something the committee can consider, because we have to expect that they follow the law, liquor licensing laws. They have to expect that they will contact the police and cooperate. And so that's been considered in the past if somebody does lie or breaks the law to even come to the meeting. My first caution is that if we're going to deny, though, or soft deny at this point, somebody would have to make a motion and give a give a reason why one of the convictions noted here substantially relates to the license activity.
So anybody has any questions before we act upon this applicant? Any more questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Rosalie?
can we deny a person that isn't being responsible if she has had 2 citations so far? Can that be a reason? Nick?
Yes,
Habitual criminality is,
Irresponsibility-
I'm sorry. Habitual
showing
criminality
irres-
is,
I'm sorry.
we keep on talking.
It is
Habitual,
showing irresponsibility.
habitual criminality is something to consider. And so what the statutes contemplate is a misdemeanor, a felony, a misdemeanor, or other offenses. And so that would be the tickets. Irresponsibility is not a factor to consider, I would say, in terms of how 111.335 works. It has to be substantially related to the license activity, which is undefined, but sometimes the committee, I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Chair,
yes, Suzette.
speaking to Alderman Rote's point of view on this, I would agree with him as far as bringing this applicant in. I think there's pertinent questions that we can ask as a council or as a committee to review whether that rehabilitation factor is meeting the statutes. Being she's had a past with disorderly conduct, multiple driving after revocation, and without a license right now, I believe it is very important when you are serving alcohol that you are showing responsibility. So I would have questions whether I would approve this applicant. And I would request that she be brought in. If that is then delayed as a matter of us not being able to have a Zoom meeting, Nick, maybe you can let us know how we would then handle that.
Certainly.
Yeah. So Suzette, yeah, we can hold it, I believe, for the next meeting. I think we could do that. I mean,
Well, and my request, Mr. Chair, was not to hold it, but was to deny it and bring her in.
well, I mean, to deny that and bring her back to the committee. Yeah, that'll be fine.
Is
So-
that a motion?
That would be my motion to
Second.
deny the
Second.
applicant. Thank you.
So all in favor to deny the license?
Aye.
Aye.
The I have it. Move for
Mr.
approval.
Chair, just for clarification on that one, so that motion was that based on the disorderly conduct and the operating without a license, those substantially related to the license activity, and that's why she's being denied. Is that accurate?
Yes, based on that, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right,
Nick.
but then my understanding is they can come in and prove that they've been rehabilitated, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so she will get a letter saying it's denied, but she has to prove that she's been rehabilitated.
Correct. And then you would have to grant it
If she proves she was rehabilitated,
if she proves competent evidence of rehabilitation. Correct.
i.e. a driver's license and either walked or, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So now we move forward with item 5, discussion regards alcohol licensing for the fee for license premises unable to operate due to safe and at home order issued by state officials.
Mr.
Mr.
Chair.
Chair, I believe there's still 2 names on the list for number 4.
That's what I
Yes.
was.
Number
Okay,
4,
what are
Kathleen
those two
Sullivan
names?
and LaMarcus Young. Do you want me to still go through those real quick?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so Kathleen Sullivan, it's a new operator's license. She has a valid license. She has an OWI from 1997. There's an accident that DOT reported. I don't believe she was cited for that. No local citations, no convictions, nothing on CCAP.
I move to approve.
Second.
I'll second Frankie.
Second, Alderperson Ranky, all in favors?
Aye.
Yeah, I have it.
And then LaMarcus Young is a new operator's license. He has an expired license, driver's license. No violations reported on the DOT notes or driving notes. He has no violations shown locally. Works is, and this will be a great one to use for training, but Works is very difficult to read. And so I think the better use is going through CCAP. CCAP shows drug convictions in 1996, 1998, driving convictions related to no license in or being revoked in 2000, 2001, 2001 again, 2002, and then drug conviction in 2003 and 2005, a resisting in 2011, and a burglary in 2012.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
if this isn't an indication of habitual offense, I don't know what would be. I would make a motion to deny. If there's a option for rehabilitation, he can come in and discuss it.
I agree. I second it. Rowanke?
so consensus of the committee is to have the lady come forward in front of the committee, is that correct?
Gentlemen,
Yes,
Deny, and he will have the
Deny.
option if he so chooses to come back.
so on the motion, we have a second?
Yep.
All in favors?
All right.
aye.
Aye.
The I have it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
for
Alderman Rowe.
for discussion purposes, Nick, I was reading that Works, whatever it's called, form,
Yes.
and was there time served on this as well?
Yes, I was going to bring that up if anybody had questions, but the 05, 2011, and 2012 incidences were kind of split up by about a year or two when he was out of custody. One of the things that somebody can show for competent evidence of rehabilitation is successfully completing a probationary sentence or sentence supervision. He was revoked in 2000 off of his 2012 incident. So he had to do some time in 2015 based on the 2012 incident.
And
This would
Mr.
be-
Chair, oh, sorry, Nick, I didn't mean to step on you.
I'm sorry, I'm talking too much during this meeting. I hope in future meetings I do not talk this much. So
No, you're fine, Nick.
I actually enjoy it, Nick.
all right. The drug offenses are also different in terms of how chapter 125 views those and how chapter 111.335 views those. And so drug offenses, specifically drug convictions, can be considered slightly differently in that it is grounds for revocation. And I'll go through a training part of this, but it is potentially grounds for revocation in and of itself. And so I will explain that more later, but the motion made encompasses everything I just talked about.
Okay.
Mr.
All right,
Chair,
we're good on that.
Yes.
what
Alderman-
were the drug related activities? Nick?
There were intent related crimes. So cocaine or other drugs with manufacture or delivery or possession with intent to deliver. There's also a drug crime, a gun crime in 1998.
Thank you.
So we can move forward. Is it nothing else for you, right, Nick?
There's nothing else on those names. I believe that vote we did have a vote on the deny there. I think we're done with that part.
Yes. Yeah, it's been all taken care. So
And
now
Mr.
we
Chair,
move on.
Mr.
Yes.
Chair,
Alderman Rowe.
I'm looking at this list here, Nick, if I may. Are we going through all the names? I'm looking at Nicole Rivera.
And so, Mr. Chair, if I could speak to that.
Yes, Nick.
The spreadsheet that was created for this one included names that the committee had already considered. And so it was inadvertent with the election going on. I believe the clerk staff just accidentally added some names that didn't need to be re-reviewed. I would not recommend that these be re-evaluated at this point because the committee already made decisions on these previously. They may come back in front of this committee as now populated to show or try to show competent evidence of rehabilitation if they were denied, but I would procedurally, I don't think we can reevaluate them now.
What was the decision for Nicole Rivera? I don't recall.
I'd have to look it up. I don't recall either. I believe
Because I'm looking at 3 OWIs and an OER. And
without looking at it, the experience I had with committee in the past, that would be somebody that was denied.
okay, thank you, Nick.
So thanks, Nick. So we move on now. Or anybody has nothing else at this point? in relation to what we've been talking about. So we can move on to item 5. Again, discussions regarding alcohol licensee fee for licensee premises unable to operate due safer at home order issued by state officials. So the question is, myself, based on the Wisconsin League of Municipalities, what we should really do, I think, to, because a lot of the business within our community, and of course, just as well with other communities, to for their renewal of the license, say if it was from March, April, and so on, to reduce the a 75% charge for the restaurant and of course taverns, restaurants that provide liquors, but excluding the liquor stores, because liquor store, even during this crisis, they've been doing business in West Dallas. So what I would like to see really to help a lot of the small business, of course, the taverns and the restaurants, to instead of charging them a full 100%, to go down to 75%. So if any committee's members has any,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
why wouldn't we just, and this is just me thinking out loud here, do it on a prorated basis?
Well, why? Can you enlighten me? Why want to do that? By prorated.
Because that's how you do a lot of things on proration. You do it, you do a house closing on proration. You do a lot of things on proration.
Yeah, I understand that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I may, Rebecca Grill, when we talked before about this, it was the 75% was really based on the fact that a lot of the licensees have only been able to use their licenses fully for 9 months of this license period. So the last 3 months that the current license period, they're not really able to use it.
Okay, that's where the 75% is. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah, that's what that was the discussion that Alderman Vitale and I had earlier today.
Yes.
So.
Mr. Chair,
Yes. Yes.
my question would be, if it's prorated, our Safer at Home enacted March 20th, if I'm correct, and we're only 1 month in. So am I ill-advised as far as what the time frame of our licensing is? I don't know if Rebecca, you can answer that for me. If you were saying on a quarterly, or I guess I'm confused as to what the 75% would call for if we've been Safer at Home for just over a month.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, yes.
Well, currently, and depending upon the Supreme Court reviewing that stay-at-home order, that is, the current order is going to at least May 26th. So that would be an additional month added on that. So if you wanted to do it, you could do a 2/12 or 1/6 you could take off if you were, or you could do it for the day. The challenge for us is we're processing the applications already and people are paying things. So whatever decisions are made by the committee will either have to refund or send out all new invoices and things like that. So I don't think many of us know what's going to be going on in the next month or so. So it's really hard to say how long they're actually going to be out of business or limited business.
Or if they
Okay,
ever get to come
if-
back into business.
Yes.
Right,
My,
but if-
Mr. Chair,
yes, yes.
would we adjust their rate for their licenses at the next period? The license period, would we adjust it then, or would we give them a refund, or how would we handle it?
Myself, really, I feel that to not really make it more complex, I would like to see it maybe for the 9 months period, because at this point, we don't know exactly how things gonna go, say in September or August, you know? So why make it more difficult in reference of the, so if we charge for the period of the March until say maybe March of next year, to me, I think it will be, I know that would be on one side that we lose some revenue, but the fact is that I think many of those business people, they lost a lot of revenue, you know, just as well. So the fact is, that's what I would like to see, not prorated. I'd like to see it, we do it to say for March up to March of 20.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
the payment that people are requesting the relief from is for their license period that would start on July 1st.
yes.
So,
Makes sense.
the other thing that has to be, that I would have to remember is that there isn't a minimum amount for the, I believe it's the Class B liquor of $500. Nick can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes. So Class B, yes, it's 500.
Yeah.
No, that's the maximum.
That's maximum, it goes from
Maximum, I mean, yes.
20 up. Mr. Chair?
Yes, so said.
I'm just gonna, I don't know if this will draw a parallel. I'm a business owner myself, and obviously I've been impacted. I'm not licensed for alcohol consumption or a restaurant, but I've closed down altogether. Now, what parallel will we draw? I understand this is a licensed health committee. However, could I then come as a business owner and say, okay, I want some relief on my personal property tax? And then we're before a different committee. If we're looking at that, and I'm a huge supporter of small business, but I also think that we're all taking a big hit, some even more than others. Restaurants and bars have been able to be open, and those serving alcohol have still been allowed to serve alcohol. So reducing those fees, in my opinion, doesn't really warrant a complete shutdown for the safer at home. When there's actually other businesses, as I said, like mine, that I'm not getting, you know, any refunds on property tax and other things. So I
Yeah.
don't know if that's an argument, a strong enough argument, but I don't know that I'd be in favor completely of even prorating the license fees.
The questions it is that the way things are, like I say, and I sympathize with all the small business, of course. The fact it is that if we were controlling, say, a beauty shop or any business they're holding or they're holding a state license, you know, that's the reason I believe we don't have no control on that. But the only thing we're talking about right now, because those taverns or restaurant with the A and B license, because they're licensed by us, and of course, that's the only reason I feel that we have control to be somewhat compassionate about the loss. And I understand you or everybody else in the small business sectors, they lost just as much, just as well. But the only thing, we don't have no control to make some determinations to say to reduce the amount of the full A and B license. You know, we have a control on that, but not with the other business. Such people have the state license, you know, which we don't have no control on that, you know. So I mean, you know, really, it's something that you know, again, it's up to the committee, you know, to look into it, you know, if they feel that's something we can do it. Again, it's based on the committee to and
Mr.
the
Chair,
entire council, of course, you know. Go ahead, Rebecca.
I believe Alderman Weigel has his hand up. I'm not sure if he wants to speak.
Yeah,
on this.
Go ahead,
Chair, if I-
Murray. Go
Mr.
ahead,
Chair, if I
Murray.
may,
Yes.
I've gotten a couple of requests from license holders in our city because some of our neighboring municipalities have been, I believe City of Milwaukee, have they waived the fee? Rebecca, do you know, has City of Milwaukee completely waived the Class B fee for their
Oh,
new?
I'm not sure. I will have to look on that.
And in point of fact, every liquor license in West Allis renews on July 1st. So everyone's already paid for their license up until July 1st. So these new applications that are coming in now are for a license beginning on July 1st of this year. So, and although some of us are open, my business is open 2 hours a week. Okay. And I'm selling essentially some beer to go, really just to go through inventory that my distributors would not take back and that my insurance doesn't cover under a spoilage rule. So anybody who wants to think that restaurants that are open are doing anywhere near the business that they had been doing pre-COVID should go talk to the owners. Now, there may be a few that are doing very well or have very good. Kegels does very well on their Friday nights, but ask them about his Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. A whole nother story. And I would think that this 25% discount for the next license year, at least is throwing a bone. We talk about things that make a city interesting, the kinds of businesses that draw people to a city. I think restaurants are among on the top of the list of what makes a city interesting to live in, work in, and visit. I would hope that when this committee meets in a year, that they don't have to discuss dealing with the discount for the rest of the year. I don't believe we're going to be back to normal. We may be open on July 1st, but anyone to think that even with a back to normal order, that restaurants are going to be back to normal this summer at all, we're going to be dealing with a lot of very complicated rules. I believe, 6 foot away, only a quarter of your tables in the dining room, all those kinds of things. I think this 25% discount is what we're talking about, correct? Not
Yes.
a 75%, just a 25%.
25%, yes.
And I don't know exactly what the B license is. I think my license fees are about $700 a year, and no one's asking about a discount on our property taxes. This is strictly on the license the city can control. So I would suggest any of you that have any questions, I understand you want to, the clerk's office wants you to act on it tonight, but I would suggest anybody, if you don't want to act on it tonight, we could act on it, maybe even, I guess it couldn't be on the agenda for tomorrow's meeting, but next Wednesday, call and talk to your 3 favorite restaurant owners in your district and ask them how their business is doing and what they think their business is going to be going forward. And just bring that answer back. That's what I have to say on this. So if anybody else, that's my belief. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman.
Mr. Chair,
Michael, yes.
I
See.
believe this is only a discussion tonight as well. We're not voting on anything tonight. It's just for discussion. Am I correct on that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So anybody else has any further questions in regard to the 75%? Of course.
Mr. Chair?
Yes. Yes.
I think we just had one of our favorite restaurant operators talking to us just now with Alderman Weigel. And maybe we should go with the 75%. And are you looking for direction,
Yes.
Rebecca?
Oh, yeah, but of course.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Rebecca.
at least if there's interest, and then can always change the amount, just something that if you want us to move forward and put something before the council for review, we could certainly have that for the meeting next Tuesday. And
Okay.
the city of Milwaukee I'm looking at their license division page and it says license and permit fees suspended during the COVID-19 state of emergency, but I can't find where that explains what that means. So,
And Mr. Chair,
Yes.
actually, Rebecca, I'm on right now. Slinger cut their license fees for 2021 as well. So it looks like multiple municipalities are doing that. If we would like to go to next Tuesday for consideration of this or vote, I'm fine with that. I had questions relative, like I said, you know, Alderman Weigel, I appreciate your input. And I can empathize and understand as a business owner myself. So I know that that's not going to be a quick recovery coming out of this. I just was making the point and the parallel is, okay, we're the license committee here and we can make decisions on this. Where then does that come into play with all other aspects of the city? Then we come forward with personal property tax, property taxes. We're going to be reviewing a lot and considering businesses like restaurants and bars are open and there's businesses completely not. That was my reasoning by bringing that up. I'm not entirely opposed. I just wasn't in full support of it either, considering that we may have kickback or pushback from other businesses.
Thank you, Alderperson Suzette. So I would like to hear that all the 4 members or 5 members of the committee, their consensus for Rebecca to look into it. You know, again, if it's a percentage change, something to bring forward for next Tuesday. So everybody agrees on that?
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would like Rebecca to adjust the rate and put it on the next council meeting if she could. I do think that, and I think Marty, I think he made a good mentor position tonight, and we appreciate that.
Well, we don't need,
The rate to be adjusted at the next meeting.
yes, but we don't need no emotion or no second. So it'd be more to let Rebecca, she can just move forward to look into it.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're moving forward with the 75%, correct?
Well, I mean, we can change that if we wish, you know, I mean, but Tuesday, I mean, if you guys want to make any changes, you know, at Tuesday meeting, you know, could be changed, you know, if you guys,
Mr. Chair?
I think she would want to know now.
well, that's if you guys, I mean, I want to, go ahead. I mean, what's your suggestions? We should stay as we talk about it?
I believe, Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I believe move forward at the 75% rate.
okay,
Mr. Chair, if I can, and I know Rebecca would like to speak in too. So procedurally, how this is likely going to be changed is under 9.0221. That's where the fees are held, or at least are enumerated. And so what I would do, or what Rebecca could do, or we could do together, is find an alderperson sponsor and submit an ordinance change, and then that can be debated on the floor or changed on the floor when there's actually something to consider or change. Right now, I think you're just discussing it and addressing options, and I guess I would like a little more direction in terms of what you would like to, which licenses you might like to see changed, especially under 9.0221, if that's what we're going to be potentially changing.
Nick, if I may. Yeah, I would like to see again with the A and B licensing. That's what I'd like to see the changes, you know, again, excluding, like I said early, the liquor store licensing, because they've been operating at this time, you know, so I don't want to see no changes. I believe we could do that, you know.
I don't think we differentiate in terms of the licenses, the cost of the license between liquor store or what type of entity. The only differentiation would be class A or class B, and then liquor or beer.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, go ahead, Alderman Stacey.
So Nick, you're telling me that a liquor store who's been able to operate because they're quote essential, would get a reduced fee?
I'm not saying anything would happen necessarily. It's up to the committee how to proceed. If you want to make class A liquor or beer not change, that's generally what the stores would have as opposed to a restaurant. I believe Class Bs, and maybe it's been a while since I've thought about these, but it's been a while. The Class Bs would be restaurants and bars generally.
Okay, because yeah, I
And
don't wanna-
Rebecca, correct me if I'm wrong. Sorry.
I don't wanna-
No, that's correct, and it would make, well, yeah, Class A's would be likely to be still open at this time. A lot of the other feedback we've been getting is from the operators or the bartenders. And I was just going to say that, I don't know if Nick would agree with this, but you could just maybe put something forward that doesn't have an exact amount, or you could put any amount in there, 75%, 25%, and the committee can discuss it and change it on Tuesday. But I would also think it might be good for us to bring back what other municipalities are doing too, so you know what other people are doing.
Yeah, I don't wanna see liquor stores and stores that sell alcohol get a discount and they're allowed to be open all the time, but these bars and restaurants are not.
So to be clear, then the committee is asking
Yes.
Rebecca and myself to look into the Class Bs, the Class B fees, not the Class A and B, just B.
Yes, please.
Just be.
Yes,
Yes,
Yes.
be,
Correct,
yeah.
because as my understanding is liquor stores are really
Yeah.
up in sales through this.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, see, that's why it's not appropriate or fair for the restaurants and which they have liquor licensee and taverns, you know, I mean, and the liquor store, like I said early, have been operating and making money, you know, so again, I mean, we should totally exclude them. And I don't think we have any retaliations or complaining about that, you know, so to me, that's a decision of the licensee to make it, you know, Tuesday. So I know that Rebecca should be working on it with Nick, so we can discuss that further. So if he's-
Do we need to make
Yeah.
a motion on this?
yes.
No.
No,
Okay.
it's no motion. That's just more informational at this time. You know?
Okay.
So anybody else, have any further questions at this time?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I just wanted to follow up. Did you want to have a meeting at 6 p.m. on Tuesday to just go over license processes and procedures, and maybe also just have a discussion on what will be on the council agenda, because you couldn't act on it before it was
Yes.
introduced at the council
Yes.
meeting.
I agree with that. I'm sure the committee just as well, right?
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, great. So is no further business at this time?
I
I'd
make
like
a
to
motion that we
move
adjourn.
to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
All in favors?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The aye have it. So I hope we all did a good job. I mean, the first time, you know, to be on